Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Bikkurim. We are up to Perek Gimel Mishna Yud Aleph. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'elu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev, and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam beGan Eden, Amen. As we have mentioned in the previous Mishnah, additional Bikkurim and decorative Bikkurim are similar to actual Bikkurim in that they may be eaten only by a Tal Kohen in Yerushalayim. The following Mishnah cites an exception to these laws. Matai amru toseved bikurim ke bikurim. When did the sages say that additional bikurim and decorative bikurim are like actual bikurim? Bizman shiba min haaretz. That's when they come from the land, the main part of Eretz Yisrael, which is west of the Jordan River, where the obligation of bikurim is biblical. Vim enah ba min haaretz. But if they do not come from the land, but rather from the part of Eretz Yisrael that is east of the Jordan River, where the obligation of Bikkurim is only rabbinic, because that region is not described as flowing with milk and honey, like we spoke about in chapter 1, Mishnah 10, and not Bikkurim, they are not like actual Bikkurim. Therefore, if produce that grew east of the Jordan is designated as additional or decorative Bikkurim, it is not subject to the restrictions mentioned above, but may be eaten by anyone even outside Yerushalayim. And that is the Nabotai of Mishnah Yud Aleph. Mishnah Yud Bet now discusses when Bikkurim are given to a Kohen, they become his personal property, like we saw in chapter 2, Mishnah 1. The following Mishnah teaches what this means. In what respect did the sages say that Bikkurim are the property of the Kohen? They are his in that he may use them even to buy slaves, land, or non-kosher work animals, despite the fact that Bikkurim are meant to be eaten by the Kohen, and these are non-food items. And the Mefarshim explain, the Torah states in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 18, Pasuk 13, the first fruits of everything that is in their land, which they will bring to Hashem, to you, Aaron the Kohen, they will be, every tall person in your household shall eat them. So it seems from this pasuk that Bikkurim are given to the Kohen for him to eat. The Mishnah teaches us that in fact, the Kohen need not eat them. Rather, he may sell them if he chooses, and furthermore, he does not even need to sell them for money with which to buy food to eat in their place. The Bikkurim, like we learned in chapter 2, Mishnah 1, are his personal property, which he is entitled to sell or exchange for anything he wants. Now, the Mefarshim do point out that when Bikkurim are sold, they retain their holiness. Therefore, even after the transaction, they may not be eaten except by a Ta'ol Kohen in Yerushalayim. And in chapter 2, Mishnah 1, we contrasted Bikkurim with Maaser Sheni, saying that only Bikkurim are personal property, whereas Maaser Sheni is not. Someone who has Maaser Sheni cannot sell it because Maaser Sheni does not truly belong to him, but rather is Mamon Gavod, divine property, which is not his to sell. However, we know you could redeem Maaser Sheni, transferring its sanctity to money, which must then be used to buy food to eat in Yerushalayim. Ubal chov notlan bechovo. A creditor may take Bikkurim from a Kohen as payment for his debt. Vayisha bichtubata, and a woman may take Bikkurim from a Kohen as payment for her ketubah. We know, the Mefarshim explained to us, if a man divorces his wife or dies before her, he or his estate must pay her a certain amount of money. This payment is called the ketubah. We'll see in Masechet Ketubot, chapter 1, Mishnah 2. The Mishnah teaches that if a Kohen divorced his wife, she may take his Bikkurim as payment. However, the halacha is relevant only as long as the husband is still alive. After a man's death, the general rule is that his heirs need to pay the ketubah only with land that they inherited and not with movable objects like fruits. Now, the law cited in the Mishnah here, when we said a creditor and a divorced woman may seize Bikkurim, they apply only in the case of Bikkurim and not Maaser Sheni, since again, Maaser Sheni is not fully under the debtor's ownership. And Mishnah says, Sefer Torah, and the same is true of a Sefer Torah, meaning a Torah scroll may also be taken by a creditor collecting his debt and by a woman collecting her ketubah. And the Mefarshim explain, a Torah scroll may not be sold other than for a pressing need, like marriage or learning Torah. The Mishnah teaches that a Torah scroll may nevertheless be seized from its owner as payment of a debt or a ketubah. Rabbi Yehuda says, "En notnim otam ela lechaver b'tova." He disagrees. He says a Kohen may give his Bikkurim only to another Kohen who is a chaver, who's someone who is so careful with the laws of Tumah and Tara that he eats even his ordinary, non-sacred food only when he and the food are tahor, and he may give them to him only as a favor without receiving anything in exchange. Rabbi Yehuda is teaching us two laws here. Number one may give his Bikkurim only to a chaver who is always careful to observe the laws of Tumah and Tara, because since Bikkurim are not used in sacrificial service and avodah, there's no concern that an ordinary Kohen might not treat them as carefully as he should. There's a concern that an ordinary Kohen might not treat them as carefully as he should, but a chaver, by contrast, can be fully trusted to eat them in a state of tara. And number two, a Kohen is forbidden to sell his Bikkurim to anyone. He may only give them away to a Kohen who is a chaver for free without receiving anything in return. Now the Mefarshim point out that this first law, which prohibits giving Bikkurim to someone who's not a chaver, applies not only to the Kohen who received them in the first place, but also to their original owner. The owner too may give his Bikkurim only to a Kohen who is a chaver. Therefore, in contrast to the previous Tana who permits using Bikkurim to buy whatever one wants, Rabbi Yehuda holds that a Kohen who receives Bikkurim may not sell or exchange them for everything. Now the Chachamim, they disagree with Rabbi Yehuda's first point, that Bikkurim may be given only to a Kohen who is a chaver and not to other Kohanim. V'chachamim omrim, but the sages say, notnim otam le'anshei mishmar. The owner gives the Bikkurim to the members of the mishmar of Kohanim serving in the temple that week. Again, we spoke about it earlier. The Kohanim were divided into 24 groups, each of which took a turn serving in the temple for 1 week at a time. Each group was known as a mishmar. V'hem mechalkin benehem, and they divide the Bikkurim among themselves, including those who are not chaverim. Kikochei HaMikdash, just like the offerings of the altar in the temple are divided among all the Kohanim of the week's Mishmar, whether or not they are chaverim. Now the Mefarshim explained the sages are responding to the first law taught by Rabbi Yehuda. They hold that although Bikkurim are not used in a sacrificial service, they resemble the sacrificial offerings in that they are brought into the temple. Therefore, giving them to ordinary Kohanim is permitted because they can be trusted to treat them with the proper respect and avoid eating them in the state of Tumah. Here as well, there's no difference between the original owner of Bikkurim and the Kohen who receives them. Both are free to give them to a Kohen who is not a chaver, according to Chachamim. There is another point of disagreement between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the owner of Bikkurim may give them to any Kohen he wants as long as the Kohen is a chaver, while the sages hold he may give them only to the Kohanim of that week's Mishmar, who divide the Bikkurim among themselves. And the Rav does tell us that the halakha follows the opinion of the sages. And that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.